Hi, I'm Sophia, a 28-year-old new mom, learning to handle the wonderful but tough world of motherhood. The first few days at home with my newborn son were a mix of happiness and exhaustion, even though he brought so much joy into our lives. Recovering from childbirth was harder than I thought. The house was always messy, with laundry piling up and dishes not getting cleaned. One afternoon, as I was trying to calm my crying baby, the doorbell rang. It was Linda, my mother-in-law, dropping by without warning. She looked around the cluttered living room, her face showing both worry and a bit of disapproval. "I thought I'd check in and see how you're doing, dear," Linda said, stepping over a baby toy. "Tom mentioned you might need some help." "Thanks, Linda. Things are a bit crazy, but we're managing," I said, trying to hide the stress in my voice. Linda walked into the kitchen, and the sound of dirty dishes seemed louder than ever. "It looks like you need more than just a little help," she said sharply. "This place is a mess. Is this how you plan to raise my grandson?" Her words hurt, and I felt even more overwhelmed. "I'm doing the best I can," I replied, holding my son closer. Linda let out a long sigh. "Sophia, being a mom is about setting priorities, and right now, it looks like you're not prioritizing anything." I was about to say something when Tom, my husband, walked in. Seeing the tension, he quickly tried to calm things down. "Mom, Sophia is doing a great job. It's been hard since the baby hasn't been sleeping well." But instead of calming down, Linda turned to Tom. "You need to help her understand what's important. It's not just about cleaning, it's about being responsible. She's not meeting the family's expectations." Tom looked at me, then back at his mom, unsure what to do. "Mom, please, can we not do this right now? Sophia is still recovering." "But this is the time to teach her," Linda said, raising her voice. "If she learns now, she'll handle things better later. You can't go easy on her, Tom." Tom hesitated, then said, "Maybe you're right, Mom. Maybe Sophia does need to learn the hard way." The words sounded strange as he said them. "Exactly," Linda agreed, gently pushing Tom toward me. "Show her that this kind of behavior isn't okay." I barely had time to react before Tom's hand hit my cheek. The sound echoed in the room, marking a terrible line that had been crossed. I held our son close, his cries blending with the rapid beating of my heart. "Tom, what are you doing?" I managed to say through my tears. The pain from the slap was nothing compared to the feeling of betrayal. "This is for your own good, Sophia. You need to learn," Tom said, his voice empty, avoiding my gaze. The room went quiet except for my baby's soft whimpers. Tom looked at me with a mix of frustration and embarrassment, while Linda stood firm, her expression unreadable but unyielding. What started as a casual visit had turned into a harsh critique of my parenting and my worth. As Linda prepared to leave, she whispered something to Tom at the door. I couldn't hear it all, but her tone and Tom's worried look told me it wasn't supportive. That night, as I rocked my son to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. What should have felt like a supportive family now felt like a trial, and I was the one on trial. As I cared for my son and felt the sting on my cheek, I started to think clearly amid the chaos. I needed a plan, a way out, not just for my safety, but for my little boy's well-being. The house that had once felt like home now felt like a trap set by the very people who were supposed to love us. After Tom slapped me, influenced by Linda, I couldn't stand the thought of sleeping next to him. I took my baby and went to the nursery, which had been a safe space for the past few weeks. As I rocked my son back to sleep, the day's events replayed in my mind, sharpening the pain and betrayal. The next morning, while Tom was at work and Linda was presumably busy, I made a call. Jessica answered on the second ring. "Jess, it's me. I need the help you offered," I said, my voice trembling but determined. "Say no more, Sophia. I'll come by today with my truck. We can store your things at my place until you decide what to do," Jessica replied, her voice strong and reassuring. The plan was simple, but risky. I would pack as much as I could during the day, focusing on what my son and I really needed. Jessica was going to help me move everything to her place in the evening. We decided it was best to leave before Tom came home from work, knowing he might try to sway me with apologies or that Linda's influence might take over again. As I packed, every outfit and baby toy felt heavy with memories and what-ifs, but the memory of Tom's slap and the look in Linda's eyes reminded me that staying was not an option. By late afternoon, most of our things were boxed up and hidden in the garage. Jessica arrived just as the sun began to set, her presence a light of hope on one of the darkest days of my life. "Ready?" she asked, taking in the scene of our life reduced to boxes and bags. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, holding my son a bit tighter. We worked quickly, loading the truck with the speed and teamwork of a well-oiled machine. The nursery, my safe space, was the last room I cleared. I took a moment there to say a silent goodbye to the life I had hoped to build with Tom. As we drove away from the house, I watched it fade in the rearview mirror, a chapter closing with a heavy but hopeful heart. My baby slept quietly in his seat, unaware of the change, but finally safe. This was the first night of our new life, one where fear and manipulation would no longer have power. At Jessica's place, my resolve grew stronger. The peace and support I found there were a sharp contrast to the tense atmosphere of my own home. In this safe space, I began to plan how to expose Tom and Linda for who they really were. My goal was not just to escape, but to ensure they couldn't twist the story to their advantage or hurt anyone else. I started by reaching out to family and friends under the pretense of catching up. I quietly recorded any mentions of Linda's behavior and Tom's unusual obedience to her. Some family members were cautious, but many didn't realize how much control Linda had. Over the weeks, these pieces of evidence started to create a clearer picture. I collected text messages, voicemails, and recorded calls. I even got a damaging video of Linda coaching Tom on how to handle me, showing it was more about control than concern. With everything in place, I chose the location for the confrontation, a family gathering at Tom's sister's anniversary party. It was a neutral place with enough family members present, some of whom had privately expressed their discomfort with Linda's control. On the day of the gathering, I was extremely nervous. I arrived with Jessica, who agreed to support me. The greetings were polite but lacking warmth. The tension about Tom and Linda's recent issues was felt by even the most distant relatives. After the initial small talk, I stood up, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "I have something important to share with all of you today," I began. Every eye in the room turned toward me. "It's about Tom and his mother, Linda, and how their actions have affected me, my son, and the whole family." Tom looked shocked and scared. "Sophia, let's not do this here," he tried to interrupt, but I pressed on, pulling out my phone. "This isn't just a family issue," I said, connecting my phone to the Bluetooth speaker. The room went quiet as the recordings played, Linda's harsh orders and Tom's hesitant agreements about correcting my behavior. The reactions ranged from shock to disgust. Tom's aunt, who had always liked me, looked especially betrayed. "Is this true, Linda? Were you forcing Tom to do these things?" Linda's face turned to a mask of anger and panic. "These are just taken out of context." She tried to deflect, but then Tom's cousin, who had been quiet until now, stood up. "No, they aren't. We've seen signs of this for years. We just didn't want to believe it." The confrontation changed everything. Relatives began sharing their own experiences, slowly revealing how Linda had manipulated the family under the guise of concern. Tom sat there, pale and silent, finally realizing the web his mother had spun around him. As the family meeting turned into a heated discussion about Linda's control, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. The truth was out, and not just for me. Everyone who had been affected by Linda's toxic influence could now see it. The evening ended with promises of support for me and my son, and a clear message to Linda that her control was no longer welcome. After the confrontation, everyone was left with a quiet, somber realization. Tom's family, long under Linda's sway, now saw her manipulations for what they were. The shock was clear, and everyone felt uncomfortable as they came to terms with how deeply Linda's influence had affected their lives. For me, the decision to leave Tom was painful but necessary. As the family gathering came to an end, the finality of my choice became real. I gathered my son, who was blissfully unaware of the turmoil, and with one last look at the family home, I stepped into the unknown. Tom watched us go, sorrow and resignation in his eyes. His voice, once so familiar, seemed distant as he whispered a quiet goodbye. Linda, on the other hand, faced a much harsher reality. The family she had controlled for so long now turned their backs on her. Each member felt betrayed and had to face the trust they had misplaced. Linda was blamed for tearing the family apart, and her attempts to regain control were ignored. The evidence and the testimonies shared at the gathering were too powerful to dismiss. In the weeks that followed, Tom tried to reach out. His messages were a mix of apologies, pleas for forgiveness, and promises to change, but the memory of him raising his hand against me was too strong to forget. The echo of Tom's mother's influence and his actions created barriers too big to overcome. The trust was broken, and with it, the foundation of our marriage. I found refuge in a small apartment, far from the neighborhood I once called home, a place where no one knew my story. Jessica remained my rock, helping me through this new phase of life. My days became focused on simple routines, caring for my son and rebuilding a safe world away from the shadows of the past. Healing was slow and often painful. Some days, the weight of everything felt too much to bear, but the freedom to make choices without fear of manipulation or abuse pushed me forward. I went to therapy, joined support groups for single mothers, and slowly, the broken pieces of my old self came together into someone stronger and more resilient. My son's laughter became my anchor. Each milestone he reached was a bright moment, guiding me forward. As he grew, so did my confidence in the future, one that I was now shaping on my own terms. Months passed, and one evening, as I put my son to bed in our cozy apartment filled with drawings and toys, I reflected on the journey. The pain of the past was still there, but it was overshadowed by the light of new beginnings. The support of friends and my son's unconditional love had created a safety net that caught me on difficult days. Sitting down with a cup of tea, I finally felt ready to share my story. I started a blog, a place to talk about my experiences and connect with others who might be dealing with manipulation or abuse. With each post, I stepped further away from being a victim and closer to becoming an advocate. As our story of resilience comes to a close, I want to leave you with a question. Do you think it's possible to fully break free from manipulative family dynamics, or do the shadows of those relationships follow us forever? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content on real-life issues. Your engagement helps us bring more stories like this to light. Thank you for watching, and let's keep the conversation going.